Hi, and welcome to another one of my videos. Thanks for dropping in, and this one is going to be another installment of what I'm calling my Fretboard DNA series. This one we're going to go over the major scale, harmonized in thirds. If you're not familiar with the major scale patterns up and down the neck, I suggest you check out my previous video on the subject. I'll link it down below, and get familiar with that before you move on to this concept. It really will help glue things together. So let's talk about thirds, just to sort of give you an idea of what we're talking about here in a musical context. Off the top of my head, songs that use thirds in some of their memorable parts are Brown Eyed Girl, etc. Okay, what also springs to mind is Margaritaville. Alright, so that sort of gives you an idea of the kind of sound that we get when we play a major scale harmonized in thirds. That's just two examples of countless other songs that use a harmonized major scale in thirds as a crucial part of the composition. We are going to take a look at thirds in the key of C, and we're going to take them on in pairs, and we're going to take each string pair up and down the neck. So let's start with thirds in C on the first and second strings. Okay, and we'll start here. All right, and you'll notice that there are two different shapes. You either have a minor third or a major third, and the way I'm fingering them there, I'm using my first finger sort of as a guide finger. My major thirds I'm playing like this with my first and second, and then with minor third shapes, first and third fingers here. So as I ascend or descend the scale, I'm playing one or the other of those two shapes. My first finger is always on the first string, and I'm either using my second finger or my third finger here. Now there are exceptions to these rules, but I find that gets the job done in most cases on those two strings. So again, those are thirds in the key of C on the first and second strings. You can find all these not the chord diagrams, but all the diagrams of the relevant subject matter here on my website at jonathantorgrimson.com. There's also, I've tabbed them out. I've tabbed out an exercise that you can go over to reinforce this concept, and like I said, the diagrams are up there as well. So that was the first and second string. Let's take a look at the second and the third string. And again, we're in the key of C. Starts off open. And back down. The key of C. All right. Moving on. We have thirds in the key of C on the third and fourth strings. All right, let's descend as well. move on to the 4th and 5th strings. Okay. Now finally, the 5th and 6th strings. Okay. Now to mix things up a little bit, we're going to also run through the key of G. But before we do that, let's talk about, I talked about the shapes and the fingerings. And they're all the same except for one instance, and that's on the 2nd and 3rd strings. On the 2nd and 3rd strings, the relationship from the 3rd up to the 2nd string is different than the other sets of strings. The 3rd string up to the 2nd string is a 3rd interval, as opposed to all the other strings, which are a 4th interval. So the shapes, when we do harmonize the scale on the 2nd and 3rd string, you'll notice are different. And let's talk about those and how I finger those. So in this particular case, the minor 3rd, I'll use my 1st and 2nd fingers. And in this case, I'm using my 2nd finger as a guide finger. So when I move between the two, in this particular case, here's my major 3rd, and I go 2nd finger and 3rd finger on a major 3rd. And on a minor 3rd, I use my 2nd finger and my 1st finger. So in this case, I use my 2nd finger as a guide finger. So it never leaves the 3rd string. So that's the shape on the 2nd and 3rd. The other shapes stay consistent on the other strings. All right. So just to mix things up a little bit, these patterns, just like everything else on the guitar is a symmetrical instrument. So these shapes are going to be applicable to any key, and you're going to be able to transpose these patterns to any key you wish. And again, I encourage you to go check out that major scale video, because when we know our major scales and we know how to move those around, it'll make moving these around much easier as we relate these patterns to those patterns. So again, I can't stress enough how important it is to learn those major scale patterns. So again, just to mix things up, we are again going to take this in the same fashion as we did the key of C, but now we're going to go over 3rds in the key of G. So again, 1st and 2nd strings. Key of G. All right, that was the 1st and 2nd strings. Now the 2nd and 3rd strings. Okay. Now 3rds in G on the 3rd and 4th strings. Now 3rds in G on the 4th and 5th strings. finally, thirds in G on the 5th and 6th strings. All right, there you have it. The major scale harmonized in major thirds. You can find diagrams to these patterns at jonathantorgumson.com. There's also some exercises that I tabbed out to help reinforce the concept. If you got something out of this video or any of my other videos, please subscribe below, and I'll be putting more of these videos like this up on YouTube in the very near future. So again, thanks for hanging out. Check out my website at jonathantorgumson.com. If you've got any questions, you can put it in the comment section below. And again, thank you very much. Hopefully this was helpful to you, and I appreciate you watching my video. Take care. Have a great one.